Hey guys! In today's video, I'm going to be talking about the bullet journaling and note-taking supplies that I'm using in 2019. Let's start off with bullet journaling supplies. The journal that I use is from Dingbats. The size is A5+, which is slightly wider than A5. This notebook has a dot grid rule, which is helpful because it provides some guidelines to keep things neat without visually cluttering up the page too much. This is from the Dingbats Earth collection, which includes some extra bullet journal features, including 2 bookmark ribbons, numbered pages, and pre-made index pages. The black pen that I use for bullet journaling is a Copic Multiliner SP 0.3mm. This is used for most of the drawing and writing that I do in my bullet journal. The reason I picked this pen, even though it's super expensive, is because the tip and ink can be replaced separately from the entire pen body. So it's less wasteful and less expensive to just replace the tip instead of buying an entirely new pen. I use a couple of different brush pens and markers to color and draw in my bullet journal. First up are the Zebra Mildliners, which are pastel-colored highlighters. I'm sure you've heard a lot about these on my channel. These are double-sided, so I use the chisel tip for larger areas and the bullet tip to color in details. I also use the Uniposca markers, which are paint markers. These allow me to color in large areas fairly evenly without the streaky look that can come when you use typical markers. Also, it doesn't bleed through my paper, unlike alcohol-based markers. For brush pens, I use 2 different sizes. The larger one is the Tombow Dual Brush Pen, and these brush pens also have a bullet tip marker. I recommend buying these individually in just the colors that you want, since they're not exactly cheap. The thinner brush pen that I use is the Pentel Fude Touch. I'm pretty indecisive, so I don't really have a true favorite brush pen, but this is definitely one of the top contenders. Next, I use the Deleter Neo Pico Line 3 2mm black marker for large, bold titles and for coloring in large areas. The other black marker that I use is a Copic Multiliner in the 1mm size for smaller titles. The last bullet journal supply I want to mention is a ruler, which is really helpful for keeping lines straight. The one that I use is a Midori multi-ruler. It folds up to fit in my pen case, but when extended it's 30 centimeters, which is long enough for my entire bullet journal. Now moving on to note-taking supplies. I use notebooks for most of my subjects. To begin with, I use Kokuyo Campus notebooks for math and French. For math, I use a grid one, and for French, I use a lined one. The other notebook type I use are the Kokuyo Soft Ring notebooks. I use a dot grid one for chemistry and a lined one for English. The soft ring notebooks have flexible rings, which prevents them from damaging things in my backpack, and it makes it easier to write close to the binding. History is the only class in which I use loose leaf paper for notes. The paper I use is the Kokuyo Campus Sara Sara in the 6mm B5. This paper has a dotted line rule, so it helps my notes be more vertically organized. A lot of you have questions about how to store this paper. It can be stored in any 26-hole B5 binder, but it won't work in normal American 3-hole binders. The binder I personally use with this paper is the Kokuyo Campus Slide Binder. Next, the black pen that I use is a combination. I use a Uni Jetstream Alpha Gel body and a Pentel Energel needle tip 0.5mm refill. I like the body because it has the squishy Alpha Gel grip, and it's weighted towards the bottom to prevent hand fatigue. The refill doesn't fit in perfectly, but I find the pros outweigh the cons. I like to use the Pentel Energel refill because the ink is really smooth and it dries super quickly, which makes it easier to highlight immediately afterwards. The highlighters that I use are the Zebra Mildliners, which I mentioned earlier. Since they're double-sided, they work great for both highlighting and drawing boxes and underlining. And lastly, I use a black brush pen for my note headers, and the one that I use is the Pentel Fude Touch. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will have links to the supplies in the description. I upload new videos every Monday, and I post pictures of my notes on my Tumblr and Instagram, which are both at studyquill. See you next time!